guys, it's been a while. I just finished a social and I had a really good question from a student, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic to talk about. So the question was basically like, what is Kizomba? Like, can I grasp Kizomba? Like, there's so many steps. I feel like I'm not getting it. And then my answer was, well, it's not about the steps. And that's one of the first things I learned from the Angolans when I was first learning years and years ago. They told me, Kizomba is not about the steps. So what is it about if it's not about the steps? Well, for me, what I've understood, like pondering on that question for years, is that it's not about the steps, because what makes Kizomba is not the steps. It's the connection. It's the creativity, the musicality, the weight transfers, right? We're basically just walking, if you want to, breaking it all back down to the simplest form. We're just walking, right? It's very simple. Some very fancy walking in some cases, but we are walking. So the interest in Kizomba does not lie in the complexity of the steps. So I like to talk to my students about, to try to make them understand about the vertical and horizontal axis on a grid. So for me, the steps, like saidas and shuffles and whatever you want to call them, are on your horizontal axis. And then the vertical axis, which in Kizomba is almost more important really than the horizontal axis, is all your variations, right? Your creativity in using those steps. For me, like I like to talk about all the horizontal steps as tools. And the tools, you need to learn how to use them, and that is your vertical axis, right? And in Kizomba, at the heart of it all, it doesn't really matter how many tools you have. It's more how you use them. So Dusayal is probably the easiest way to understand this. Is Dusayal is kind of like the music is stripped down, so it's hard to just like go on the beat. So then you have to kind of get out of your head and into your feelings, right? And then you're not moving around a lot, but you're doing a lot of little tiny movements. You're breathing and hugging and just creating that good feeling with your partner and the music, and getting to this place that's like more like a spiritual arena versus like, being here in your body, we'll say. And that's why people start like dancing sometimes for hours together, because it's like we build this connection and this trust, and like we get kind of on the same wavelength, and then it's like everything is just easy, and we're just like flowing together, like we're on the same page, and it's not something you really want to stop, because you don't know if you're going to get that with the next person, right? It's the same kind of thing as with relationships. Sometimes conversations are easy and some conversations are hard with certain people, right? So when you find that you can just like flow with someone, like it just feels good to keep talking, right? So just like the language, it doesn't have to be always complicated words, and sometimes simple words are best to express yourself. Like most of us don't know all the words in the dictionary, you know? And you can like express yourself in your own way, right? And that's like more powerful than like how many words you use doing that. So it's the same kind of thing with dancing. So it's like, instead of being in your body and in the steps and like, you know, counting the number of steps you're doing and like how complicated they are and everything. It's more like you become an instrument in the music, right? You're part of the music, of the environment there, of your partner. Like everything is just like, you know, and your body is expressing the music. And I mean, some of the instruments in the band, they don't do complicated things. Like think about the clave, for example, in salsa, right? Da 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 da. Right? It's gonna do that the whole time, right? Like it's part of like an ensemble, right? And Kizomba is kind of like that. It's like you're part of something, and then when you're in it, and when you what you're doing is like reflecting the music, right? Like, and I think at the heart of it, like that's kind of what you want for all dances. You want your body to fully express the music, you know, in a way where like if someone didn't have the music and they saw you dance, they could almost figure out like what kind of music it was, right? Or what it sounded like just by the way you're dancing. And so when you're doing that, that's way more powerful than like how many complicated steps you do. So yeah. Focus on, I guess when you're, if you want to become a good Kizomba dancer, focus on that. Focus on your own creativity, your own connection with yourself, with your partner, with the music, musicality, but also basic technique, you know, basic walking technique, like all your basic steps, like the Saidas that you're gonna need, right? Because you do need some vocabulary to speak. Especially like if you're by yourself dancing solo, then you can basically do what you want. But like if you have a partner, then it needs to be a conversation, so there needs to be a language, a common language, right? So, and then things like balance, right? Core strength, all those things make you be able to express the music. So if you focus on those things versus like learning complicated combos, because the problem with like patterns and combos and things like that is that it works on this specific piece of music, right? And it works well because of like the way it is, but like everywhere else in every song, you're not going to find that exact thing. So it's not going to help you express the music fully. It's actually going to hinder you because you're going to get stuck in just like the steps. Okay, I have to do this step after this step after this step. Yes, but what happens when it doesn't fit the music, right? And then you're like kind of stuck and then you don't know what to do. So instead, if you think about like, I can move forward, back, sideways, and whatever, but like, how can you do that? Like in a way that expresses the music. So you want to think about it like another way. And then when you have that connection and the feeling and all those things, it's like everything else melts away and is not important anymore because you have the connection. You know, the good feeling is like you're floating in the clouds or whatever you want to call it, right? But you've got that special feeling, and that's like more important to most people, especially the advanced Kizomba, than the actual steps. So yeah. So I just wanted to pop in and talk about that because I think like we don't talk about it enough, especially for beginners. And for me as a teacher, you know, that's something that is important to me. That like I teach the steps, yes, because it is again a language, and we need to learn the language. But I also, for me, it's a big mind thing because I find most students that come to me, they have the wrong idea about Kizomba, or they don't understand the dance. Like they've come in with other dance background and they're expecting it to be the same, and they're like, well, why can I understand what Kizomba is? There's like so many things and I can't grasp, like I can't make sense of it. is because it's not meant to be made sense of, because everyone is creating their own thing in a way, when you're really in that moment. So although there are like rules and like basic steps that are common, we're often like breaking a lot of rules and like, playing with different things, and so it's always like kind of changing, and a lot of dancers have their own styles, right? So there's a lot of variation in how it's danced. So it's really hard to kind of grasp. And if you're trying to learn like all the steps there is, it's like mind-boggling, right? Because there's like so many different variations. But instead, you have to let the song from your own heart, we'll say, speak to you and express it through the language. So practice is definitely key, because you want to get those steps in your body so you don't have to overthink about them, so you can be in that place of the feeling and the connection and stuff, right? So as a beginner, it's a little bit like hard because you don't have the steps in your body yet, so it's hard to go into connection, right? So you're building, that's how I try to build my students, a little bit like that, right? Like a little bit of steps, a little bit of understanding and connection, and it's just like, yeah, after a while then you're there, right? You find it, and you find Kizomba basically, and then you grow your understanding of it more and more. And then, after that, for me, my main job is done when someone is able to do the basics, without thinking about it too much, and then able to connect and flow and, do variations of those basics with their own self-expression, their own creativity, and their own musicality, and they have that understanding of the music, of the connection, their partner, all those things, right? So for me, like, my main job as a teacher is done. Because for me, like, I see my students doing that, and then I feel like they're dancing. So they're not just stepping through their steps, they're actually dancing Kizomba. And then after that, everything else is icing, icing on the cake. The cake is there, and then you can make it as pretty as you want, as complicated as you want. That's where all the steps come in and all that stuff, right? But more important than that is to actually dance Kizomba, actually feel what it is. Yeah. So yeah, I think the style of Dusal can really teach us a lot, because everything is kind of stripped down. We're losing a lot of like the very strong beats. It's a more sparse music, so it makes us not be able to just go into our patterns on the beat and stuff like that, because it's not there. So then we have to get different strategies, and then also because it's slower, we have time to think, and kind of feel and express. So it brings us out of that, like, oh, I'm stepping through everything, like, mental thing, into like a more of a feeling place, which is really where you want to be as much as possible when you're dancing any of the styles of Kizomba, although like some of the styles lend themselves more easily to that than other styles. So yeah, feel. Yes, breathe, feel, connect, express. Yeah, don't forget. That's the thing, we get caught up in the steps, right? And we forget. I've been guilty of that too. And sometimes we feel that we're not enough. We don't have enough stuff. We don't have enough this and that and whatever. But really, all we can do, and I like to say to my students, like, all you can be is who you are right now. You can learn more things, and like in 6 months you'll be in a different place, but right now, just dance yourself the way you are, right? With the steps that you can do, with the understanding of musicality and connection and creativity that you have in this moment. And there's lots of tools to enhance that, and if you keep developing those tools, and you will get better at all those things. But right now, don't sweat the small stuff. Just dance as who you are, right? In that moment, and have fun with it. And even if it's with the 5 basics, you can have some pretty dang amazing dances with just the 5 basics, with a lot of musicality and self-expression and sauce. All right, well, keep on dancing, and we'll see you guys in the next one.